Good morning and welcome. It's Good Morning Anambra Friday episode, and we're so much delighted to be here this morning. I hope you're as delighted as we are in the studio this morning. My name is Nonya Nwokoye, welcoming you to the show. Let's begin with the press review. Good to have you on the press review this morning. As usual, it's a time we take a look at some of our national dailies and of course stories trending on ABS website. And in the studio, I have a public affairs analyst, Kingsley Ogu, to joining us now. Good morning, Kingsley.
Good morning. Good morning, the Anambra Day One.
You're welcome. All right, we begin with taking a look at stories making the headlines on ABS website. Soludo presents a 2022 revised draft budget of 170 billion naira to Anambra State Assembly. Anambra State government initiates measures to enhance transport, improve waterways. Anambra State government plans to establish Central Motor Park. Anambra Deputy Governor Ibezim visits Innocent Vehicle Manufacturing Company, Newe, restates government resolve to promote indigenous products. Now let's begin with the revised draft of the budget, because the governor said is to meet the realities on the ground.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think we must appreciate the fact, that Anambra State Governor, Professor Chukwuma Charles Soludo, we have, a governor, that knows what it takes, to have, a livable homestead. He has harped on that, and he wants to live the talk. Right now, he has proposed a 170 billion naira budget. Of course, as it is, it's a proposal. So I pray, it passes, through, the rigors, of the State Assembly, So be that as it may, I will commend, the governor, having actually seen it expedient, to a kind of increase, not just meeting the demands, of the Anambra, but ensuring, that capital, appropriation, at least this time around, touches, on the lives of the people. With a 60%, 64% devoted to capital expenditure, I think, it's a shift in the norm. It's a shift in the normal. Let me put it this way, it's a good thing. We have, as it is, a recurrent in which when you balance, the capital vote, from the recurrent, you have hope, that if it is well utilized, definitely we will have, something to show for it at the end of the day. I think the increase right now, what we have there, out of the 170 billion, we have a capital expenditure, at 68%, at the revised, version, moving, from the figure of 57%, from 57 to 68. I think, there is, a good, appreciable increase there.
All right, so let's see who is on the line already. Hello, good morning. Good morning. Okay, because this program is audience participatory, when you call, you tune down the volume of your TV set, or you move away completely from where your TV set is so we can get to communicate effectively. Now, we know that we have New Anambra under Governor Chukwuma Soludo. There's a lot of work to be done, and you know that the moment he assumed office, he stopped touts from collecting money from people. Now they are planning to establish a central motor park. I wonder where that will be, or maybe in the 3 major cities. That's Nnewi, Onitsha, and Awka. I don't know how that's going to be.
Yes, you will agree with me, that when I say that we Anambra should thank, their stars and residents, not just Anambra, we should thank our stars for having a man in the mold of Soludo. I think, I was driving at something, because there are initiatives, currently, that actually, will, give the Anambra a new lease of life. Okay, coming to the proposal, for a new central motor parks, I think it's a wonderful idea. It's in line, with, that creative, that destructive creation, our governor, had actually, in his inaugural speech, he actually said it is time, for destructive, creative destruction, So at this point, I want to link it on what is going on right now. Yes, if you go to, industrialized, countries, not even the most industrialized ones, like if you go to China. China has been, a third world, country, I'm not saying it, just for saying sake, but from experience, despite their population, their transportation system is very organized. You see vehicles going to different destinations with their numbers. They don't collect fare from you. You board the vehicles, you just go and drop your fare. Nobody tells you to drop your fare. Nobody gives you order. And yet the populace, they conduct themselves, very orderly. How possible is that? Because you don't go to bus terminals and then you see people doing all sorts of things. No. The central terminal is too large, well constructed, very conducive, and then people behave in tandem with, the facilities they have. So if we have such here, it is not a bad idea. And we can get it. It's all about the willpower. So if we want to explore that, I think it's a good thing. I mean, you go to some other places equally, and you understand what I mean.
All right, before we move to the papers, let's equally take this story of a deputy governor Ibezim visiting Innocent Motors. You know that on the day of inauguration, our governor says it's kind of promoting indigenous foods, indigenous product. That like when the vice president came, they said that he's going to test unkwenu from from which that side, is it Obat side or where, and abacha from Omunze. So this time around, he visits the Innocent Vehicle Manufacturing Company, which is of course the official vehicle of the current administration. So they are still out, to promote the indigenous products.
Like you rightly pointed out, yes. I want, first of all, to appeal, to Anambra. I'm not speaking for the governor, because I am not, appointed to do that on his behalf, So, but the reality is that, yes, he has a vision for the state, and we must appreciate that. So we actually, on our part, must employ patience, in order to see what he has for us. You go out there, you a kind of probe into the feelings of the people. They seem to be, very, very desperate, to have everything perfect spontaneously. It doesn't happen that way. So I want to say, yes, the visit of Deputy Governor to Innocent is germane.
All right, let's see who is here. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
What's your name and where are you calling from?
Yes, I'm Patrick.
Patrick.
I'm calling from Ukwoji.
Ukwoji where? In Oka here?
In Oka, Ukwoji, Oka.
All right, welcome.
Oka, Ukwoji, Oka.
All right, go ahead and talk to us.
Yes, I think I can hear the new section of the governor forming the Central Motor Park.
Okay.
The good thing that is a good development on the Anambra State. And as well, I'm suggesting that he will as well form the mechanic village on the Anambra, because look at everywhere is mechanic welding and this. It does not look at look. So I'm suggesting that mechanic people, you should build a place for mechanic people to go in, like it's in our country, in Lagos, in overseas and abroad.
That something like mechanic village.
Yes.
All right,
Village.
thank you very much. Thank you. That's a wonderful suggestion there by our brother that is calling from Oka this morning. It's a wonderful suggestion. I think we have to move on now to the first paper of review this morning, the Daily Sun newspapers. Let's see stories making the headlines on the Daily Sun. On the Daily Sun, the banner headline says Buhari unsettles APC aspirants with riders there. President silence non-show of preference so far leave contenders in quandary. Fears of consensus option heighten. We've connected full implementation of community policing. That's coming from Police Affairs Minister. Police bust gunmen's shrine, others in Imo with riders there. Capture live python ammunition. Protest rocks Abia community over kidnappings, killings by gunmen. Nigeria can overcome security challenges in 2 years with right leader Obasanjo talking with a rider there, calls for sacrifices. Sit at home. Delta government advises IPOB to adopt other means of agitation with a rider. Pro-Biafra group advises Pastor Kumuyi against Abia crusade. Reps urge Buhari to sign amended electoral act to avert political crises. Supreme Court joins Rivers State in Buhari Malami's suit, shifts hearing to May 26. Ex-EFCC boss Mago will face trial if indicted. That's coming from federal government, says police dealing with unknown gunmen in language they understand. Now, security operatives destroy 167 illegal refineries, arrest 18 alleged oil thieves in Niger Delta. And Soludo laments 120 billion naira debt in Anambra. All right, a lot of stories in front of the Daily Sun newspaper. Which one are you taking?
Like you said, a lot of stories out there, there's no day that passes now that we don't talk insecurity, and I saw, at the earpiece there, security bust.
Police bust gunmen's shrine, others
in Imo. Yes, I was actually attracted to that, because it is raising, serious concerns, in our lives this time around, because each day we keep hearing, damning, stories, about the menace of, hoodlums, So I wouldn't know if keeping silent, to the whole thing, would help in any way. So I think we have to talk as much as we could, and not just talking. We have, the people saddled with that responsibility must act in tandem with the exigencies of the time. So what am I saying? Yes, I want to commend the security, the police specifically this time around, for their effort in containing, the onslaught, However, yes, the situation demands, thinking out of the box, because, yes, the people actually, committing all these atrocities, all this, violence in the street. They are not spirits. They're humans
And
living
even
with us.
the OCOA is equally advising them to devise another means of agitation. I don't know what that would be if you will ask him.
Yes, without jumping the gun, yes, if the hoodlums, would be content, yes, the security agencies must be at their best. They must, show commitment, to do their, to take on their responsibilities. Because when incidents happen, there must be arrests. And when there are arrests, there must be prosecutions. And this will give the public confidence, that something is being done. And then, with the populace, we will have the courage to go about our legitimate duties, But week in, week out, you hear of, attacks, you hear of banditry on daily basis, and the results, which citizens expect, they don't actually get it. I think it doesn't tell well, with the system and the operational, the modus operandi of our security system. Having said this, OCOA advocating for a different approach, to the agitation. It is apt. I think it's a good thing, and not just OCOA. A lot of Nigerians, we've, had actually, made such contributions, because what's the spirit actually that gave birth to the agitation? Marginalization. We cannot come back right now again to be marginalizing ourselves. We are shooting ourselves on the foot, by doing what? Killing ourselves. And
All right, let's see the Punch newspaper next in our lineup. Let's see stories on the Punch newspaper. Presidential primaries. Uncertainty over APC PDP delegates list as Buhari delays electoral act. We tried as there. Nobody has exact number of delegates for presidential primary. Von DG talking. APC begs INEC for extension. Oshimbajo team denies hotel plan for delegates. We must re-strategize for Nigeria to change, says Obasanjo. Anambra gunmen shun Soludo's 60-day peace offer. Continue reign of terror. Planned resumption of train service insensitive, says abductee's family. We have a man traffics wife for prostitution, sells son for 600,000 naira. Okada ban, police clash with riders. Sees 200 bikes as Lagos vows more raids. A Lagos agent allegedly breaks businesswoman's leg over 30 million naira failed deal. And we also have devolution of power key to national development. Akeredolu speaking. NNPC moves to stop a $1.6 billion Seplat ExxonMobil deal with major counter offer. Lagos Airport shut temporarily. Flights diverted over mangled corpse on runway. FG moves to end ASU strike. Begins arrears payments. Khan backs Komoye's Southeast Crusade. Asks IPOB to embrace peace. 29 states lack insurance cover for workers. Pencom talking. Issue visa on arrival at entry points. Judge tells immigration. A lot of stories in front of this paper. Let's see the issue of ASU and the federal government, which has been on the pages of our papers for some time now. ASU, and sometimes you hear they are meeting. Sometimes you hear they are going back to classrooms. Sometimes you hear that ASU said no agreement with the federal government. So this time around, they say ASU, the federal government has moved to end ASU strike, begins arrears payments. I don't know whether this includes the payment of the, they stop salaries for workers due to this strike, whether that is equally inclusive in what they are paying them.
Well, the issue of ASU strike, I think it has lingered, more than necessary, and it has gotten to a point, that we will ask ourselves, some basic questions. One is, what do we consider our priority? Yes, if we think and believe that education is pivotal in building a strong nation, how are we actually, living this belief? By fortifying our educational system. Going by what's going on now, it's like we are deceiving ourselves. We are not being sincere. So if you tell yourself the truth, who will sit back in the comfort of his home and then allow over 10 million Nigerian children out of school? And then, unfortunately, some of the authorities who, could make impact in affecting the right change, they have their children overseas. And, it doesn't prick your conscience, that the climb you sent your child, to go and school is functioning, and you stifle your own climb. So where is the moral justification? And each day we come out here to discuss, pally on arrears and some emoluments, and agreements not met. Why are those agreements not met? And then you ask yourself, why are those people, putting forth, that argument that it should be, that agreement should be met? Why are they being insistent? Then you find out that there are a lot of issues there, and it demands that there must be sacrifices. Those who are pushing, for implementation of certain conditions, they must consider the fate not just of the children, but of even the country they serve. We are all serving Nigeria, for crying out loud, and it is your opportunity. So you don't need to hold Nigerians to ransom. So you yourself, as a lecturer, you have to make sacrifices. However, what sacrifice do you even expect them to make when their basic needs are not met based on the emoluments they receive? And an appointee of the government there is taking, a large sum of. I am not actually, I'm not against anybody's takings, but it is important that we harmonize things. We actually give, the right due to whom deserves it.
Okay, and we pray that as they plan to end this strike, it will end for good, and let's not hear that tomorrow another strike is
starting. It will only end for good if certain conditions are met.
Let's pray they meet it, because this one they've started, they said they are starting to pay arrears of their salaries or whatever they are owed. We pray that they pay all that they needed to pay. Now, let's look at this story of the police clash. They ban police clash with riders, Okada riders, seized 200 bikes as Lagos vows more raids. We know that this is the aftermath of what happened in Lagos last week, of the killing of a young man over 100 naira issue. And this is coming up now. So the government had to ban Okada riding in so many areas in Lagos. Let's see who is here before we go on. Hello, good morning. Okay, this is the aftermath. The killing of that young man brought about the government of Lagos State banning the Okada in some areas. They said in 4 local government areas or so. Now, it's like they are insisting, which brought police into the situation to seize the Okadas. And I heard they clashed yesterday. I heard the story yesterday, how they clashed.
Well, let me first of all, correct the impression, that it is an aftermath. No, it wouldn't, be an aftermath, because the ban in Okada operations, had been in Lagos, for some time.
No, but not in all the areas. Yes, not in all the areas, just like in every other state.
Exactly.
Yes, but this thing that happened made the state government to ban the Okada in some other areas close to the place where the incident happened.
Yes. I am building, my argument, because if you say it is, reactionary, yes, I think it is not absolute, because Lagos State actually had been at the forefront of regulating, activities of Okada men. Right. So, and based on accumulation of their excesses, now the government, saw it expedient, to put a stop in their operations entirely. Be that as it may, I want to say, that yes, stopping Okada because of a particular incident it's not the best approach.
All right, let's see who is here. Hello, good morning. We are pleading with our viewer. Please, you can tune down the volume of your television set, or you move away from it completely so you can hear us. Listening to the television at the same time, calling on phone is quite disruptive here. Hello, good morning. Good morning. Okay, you are talking about, we are still talking about the issue of Okada riders in Lagos. Yes. Hello? All right, let's go on.
Yes, I was at a point, that banning Okada due to a particular incident, is just like, cutting the leg, because of a nagging injury, So I think it is not actually, the best of reaction, to ban Okada operations completely, except that the government is convinced, that their system, cannot be further condoned. Yes, it becomes clear, because, like we said, we need, to standardize operations in Nigeria. We need to make things work in the way it should, and not just anything goes. So, at this point, I will say, yes, Lagos State government, they did what they should do, because they have been making plans towards, ridding Lagos of Okada operations. Okay. Why have they been, getting towards that? Because, they've used, that transportation system to wreak a lot of criminalities in Lagos.
Okay, let's see the Nigerian Tribune now. Let's see stories on the Nigerian Tribune. El-Rufai confirms presence of Ansaru terrorists in Kaduna. Supreme Court joins Rivers in Buhari's suit against Section 84, subsection 12 of Electoral Act, with riders to hear suit May 28. Families of abducted passengers kick against the resumption of train services. How I was drafted into presidential race, Lawan talking, says Nigerians shouldn't dismiss me as northern candidate, he argues. Sign amendment to Electoral Act to avert political crisis, Reps Minority Caucus tells Buhari. The primaries, APC, PDP in states quake. Aspirants adamant over zoning arrangement. Rumpos over delegates list. Obaseki. Obi camps feud over different court orders. Aspirants protest in Benue, Plateau, Ogun, Ondo, Kaduna. Uncertainty in Anambra APC. Customs begin VIN implementation for imported vehicles today. Okada ban June 1 deadline won't stop enforcement. Lagos government. Ocean Poll, I have no money for private jets or to buy votes. Oyetola talking, I am endowed with capacity to lead, he says. Okay, everybody is looking towards one ticket. Is one president that we are going to have come 2023, you know, and this, someone said you should not disqualify me because I'm a northern candidate. That's Lawan talking. Nigerians shouldn't dismiss me as northern candidate. And now this person is saying that he doesn't have money to buy votes, but he has the capacity to be our president. That's coming from Oyetola.
Oyetola.
So a lot of people, we have how many parties? We have so many people vying for the presidential ticket. Of course, one person is going to be our president.
Yeah, I think the story, you know, is captured, you know, in many media. So for Punch had it, even though we didn't take it up, you know, at that point, you know, when we reviewed Punch, you know. So Punch captioned it uncertainty over APC PDP delegates. Insist it has a rider there, you know. Okay. But all the same, what we are talking about here is that all of them points to, you know, the need, you know, for the signing of the Electoral Act. That's the revised Electoral Act. Yes, it is giving people concerns now, you know, because not long now, you know, I think in less than 10 days or thereabout, you know, then the primaries, you know, will take off. And at this point, parties are yet to know, not just parties, candidates, you know, aspirants are yet to know the number of delegates that will be voting. And you find out that in Section 82, paragraph 12 of that Electoral Act, you know, is waiting for amendment. It's a determinant factor.
And they are in court. They said Supreme Court joins Rivers in Buhari's suit against Section 84, subsection 12 of Electoral Act.
So I think there is a confusion here.
All right, let's see who is here before we go on. Hello, good morning.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning.
What's your name and where you're calling from?
I want to talk about this.
What? Where are you calling us from?
I'm calling from Bauchi State.
You're welcome. Your name, please.
Augustine Ibabuchi.
Okay, Augustine Ibabuchi, our brother. You're welcome.
Talk about this delegate issue.
All right, go ahead.
This 2023 election is supposed to be for votes. No Igbo delegate should put any other aspirant from any other tribe. Let us give block votes to our people. It will not be, no matter the amount of money that is given to you, as an Igbo delegate, make sure that you collect the money and put for an Igbo. So this is what I want to say. So the other one is that if you check now, you'll discover that the Abuja yesterday and this morning today, a lot of Igbo traders they are shot to the bonds and their properties were destroyed. You go to South Africa, Igbo there are molested and their properties are destroyed. Anyway, you go to Sokoto the other day, the same thing happened. Igbo properties were destroyed. And I want to say that time has come for Igbo governors, the first state governors of Igbo land, to put Igbo land in order so that our people outside in diaspora can come back. Most people that are here in the north are here because they don't have anything they can do when they come back home. Some of them have 6 children, some have 10 children. And when they come back home, what will those children eat? So this is the reason why we should put the heat in us so that all who in any other part of this country can come back. Many of us want to come back. We don't have anything to do at all.
All right.
And there's no one who can come back with their children and start them to death.
All right, thank you very much. Point noted. Thank you.
I think let people governors come together and put people on the order so that our people, we are no longer affected anywhere in the country today.
All right.
Killing and women is on the rise.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Babji, for calling. Thank you. All right, we were saying something before
Yeah.
the call came in.
Coming back to, section 84, subsection 12, I think we are in a dilemma here, because a situation where candidates cannot be certain, the number of delegates, that should be voting for him, I think it's a situation. And until this section of the law is strengthened out, it still remains, gray what, even the general election will turn out, because court, there is a pronouncement on it now as it is. So how is this ratified? So the president needs to act urgently so that there will be credibility in the primaries that will be conducted in the nearest in few days. So I don't know why we keep, dilly-dallying on serious issues. However, I want to appeal, just to appeal to delegates who will be voting come 30th or thereabout, that they should take Nigerian nation, the interest of Nigeria, primary.
All right.
That should override every interest.
All right, and that's just about it on the press review this morning. I'd like to appreciate you, Kingsley Ugu, for being here this morning. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Nonye. Thank you, Indianambra. Thank you, Nigerians.
And that's the press review. Thank you so much for being a part of it.